Charleen, thank you for being here with me today. For those of our viewers who don't know, tell us a little bit about the National Catholic Partnership on Disability that you help to lead.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
The National Catholic Partnership on Disability was called into existence 42 years ago from the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops.
Right.
So we serve as the resource for disability ministry for our dioceses and our parishes, supporting them in regards to physical disabilities, intellectual, behavioral, or emotional disabilities. All kind of comes under our umbrella.
Wonderful.
And what do you think is the biggest gap in care? You've been leading this. You also understand how some of the aggressive policies around euthanasia affect a lot of disabled individuals. Autism Speaks is one of the leading advocates against euthanasia in the United States. What are those gaps in care that we might fill as Catholics?
Well, I think we can, start with, obviously a lot of training is needed. The diagnoses are on the rise, so exponentially, we can't train fast enough. Especially, you mentioned autism. I would also mention anything on the mental illness and mental health note in particular. And for me, for everything that we're focused on right now today in particular on the March for Life, it is really about the dignity of the person and letting the person lead us in regards to our decisions, especially regarding medical care, treatment, and having a more pastoral and compassionate sensitivity to the needs of the mother, the father, the entire family. More holistic approach, I guess I would say. So I just think those are some of the gaps that are happening that we can fill individually and collectively.
Yes, and Charleen, I'm curious, how have you seen the overturn of Roe versus Wade just 2 years ago kind of change the conversation around aiding people with disabilities, related to life in the womb?
Well, even that, again, we focus a lot on language and the power of words we use. So we want to get away from any kind of lethal language in particular, especially regarding a child in the womb. That oftentimes people are told they have a life that's that they have an incompatible life.
Right.
Well, they have a very compatible life ahead of them. And so that's one thing that you can absolutely just start changing is the words we use so that we remove some of the stigma and or shame or fear that comes with having a child with a disability. Because in the end, the children and the people we know and love with disabilities are a blessing to us, to the world, to the church in particular. They call us to slow down in our own busy lives, and that's a good thing.
That's a great point.
I mean, and again, I think the other thing we want to focus on are the gifts that they have. The blessing that they are, the gifts that they have to offer to the church and to the world. Focusing on that is very beneficial.
And the joy that they bring to our lives
hugely.
as well. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Charleen, another thing I want to talk about is I'm a mom, and as when you're a mom and you have to go through testing, right, prenatal testing, a lot of times, especially if you're a little bit older when you have a baby, you have to take certain tests, and some of those tests may indicate something like a chromosomal abnormality. And many of those doctors, unfortunately, push an abortion agenda on moms who may be having a baby with Down syndrome, or they think, and those tests aren't always accurate.
Exactly.
What would you say to a woman who has got maybe that diagnosis from their doctor, and maybe they weren't so strong in their faith and contemplating what to do?
That's a great question.
I think I'd say, please have a conversation with someone else. Because I think just having the opportunity to speak to someone else, be it their spouse, be it their pastor, be it some other ministry leader that might give them a more positive, a more supportive message is what they need to hear. So I would really encourage them to have another conversation, to not make a decision based on that. Because as you said, sometimes they're not even correct.
Yeah. Charleen, why do you think doctors do that? Why do you think they push that abortion agenda instead of talking about the baby in the womb and the options that are available?
I really can't answer that question. I wish I knew why they do that. I know that they are trained in a certain way in medical school from what we've heard. So they're probably following their training. It's just that we sure wish that training was different.
Definitely.
Now, Charleen, just to play devil's advocate, we had someone on News in Depth a couple of months back, Melissa Shanks, who has disabled children, and who are the joy of her life and the gift to her family. Yes. She has a lot of challenges keeping them in schools. Catholic schools do not give her the resources that she needs to be able to take care of them. How are you coming around those parents, or your organization coming around those parents, and the USCCB? How do you prioritize really taking care of those children and supporting those families and parents.
We can always do more. We need to do more. We're not in denial about that, I would say. And it's not easy. The choice they make to keep a child, especially if they know that they have a disability, or let's face it, a child or a person could acquire a disability later in life. Yes, that's a different life circumstance than another family might experience, and it's very challenging. But the church is called by the U.S. Bishop's pastoral statement, their initial statement from 45 years ago, to open the doors of our church, and more importantly, the hearts of the people in the church, to be supportive. You know, we say that when we stand up at someone's baptism and say, as a community, we will walk with you, we will journey with you, right? So it is about the accompaniment, and person by person, family, parish, diocesan community, we really have to be that unified voice in family to journey with someone who has greater needs, is how I say it.
Oh, yeah.
So again, it's just a matter of, for our office, we do a lot of training. We absolutely do a lot of one-on-one conversations with families like Melissa.
Beautiful.
All the time. And do as much as we can to, again, train diocesan or parish leadership, as well as clergy.
Yeah, it's important.
How to be very pastoral.
Yeah, very important.
These families have a lot on their platter.
Well, it sounds like you're calling all of us to do more.
I think the church, and I think God calls us to do that, you know. But every baptized Catholic has the right to be educated in their faith, to celebrate sacraments, and more importantly, to respond to God's call. So that's where their gifts come into play. And we all have gifts.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
You know,
That's
and we
right.
have to presume competence.
Yes, absolutely.
And Charlene, thank you for coming on and speaking with us.
It was a joy to have you.
Appreciate all
Thanks
that
for the
you do.
invitation.
Yeah.
God bless you.
God bless you.
You know, support for